of guests. And joining us this morning, we have Honorable Kimani Wamatangi, Senator. Welcome.
Thank you.
It's great to have you with us again.
Thank you.
We also have Patrick Gadara, a common person we've seen in this newsroom many times. So karibu sana.
Asante sana.
You've been well?
Yeah, have it good. Have it good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
It's been a while since.
Did you miss us?
What? Yes, I have to say I did.
Oh, Gadara said something nice. He missed the media, the bad people.
And no wonder he has such a big smile on his face today.
Well, it's good to be back, I have to say. It's good to
or did you miss having a go at us?
Well, I mean, there's other forums for for doing that apart from the newsroom.
Yeah, like which one? Social media?
Pardon? Yeah,
Like
social media. And I'm sure you've been following my posts and everything. So, yeah, I think we've got a lot to discuss about how you guys handled your standoff.
Oh, you wanted to go there. Senator, what is it? Kiambu Road, I hear some of your people are saying things are good. What's good there?
Because of the traffic. Well, I guess we are driving less and becoming more eco-friendly. Yeah, you know, but we have plans on to make Kiambu Road a dual carriageway with all the developments that have come up on that road, and I hope that's going to be soon. We are working at that. Should be better. And the Kiambu is the place to go now. I mean, it's coming up very well. You know, yeah.
Things are moving on well.
Thank you.
Well, let's get to it. I mean, corruption or fight against graft is what has been in the headlines so far. And there's many angles to this particular story. We'll try to look at several. Let's start with the most recent, with developments that unfolded yesterday with the EACC and the suspension of the Deputy Secretary by the Chair, then being reinstated by the CEO later on. And then this petition that we understand has been filed by some in the Commission against the Chair and submitted to the President. And as far as telling this story and EACC's challenges or competence, if you like, and as far as this war is concerned, Gadara, has the media tackled that well?
Well, I think they have highlighted pretty much the goings on in between the conflicts, if you will, within the EACC, especially now with the first suspension and not suspension of the deputy. But I think in terms of the entire war against graft, I think we have been a bit remiss in the media in following up on some of the things that have been raised, and actually the lack of follow-up, if you will, by the EACC. You know, I mean, it's now 2 years past after the elections. I think they've been in office, a lot of them, for about maybe 4 or so years. You know, what do they have to show for it? You know, we've got scandal after scandal coming up. You know, but we don't really see people being arraigned, apart from the few who are now nabbed on the Anglo-Dissing.
From our end as the media, what would we have done differently? Because really we are reporting what's happened. We can't prosecute.
I think that's the problem, is that the media only reports what's in front of it. You know, I'll give you an example. The other day, the Nation or NTV did a piece on the security lights, and I mean the security cameras and traffic light system was installed in 2013, and now we discovered it doesn't actually work. You know, this is something I had been raising personally, and it had actually even been discussed here for the last 2 years. You know, but there is no follow-up. You know, the deputy governor and Nairobi County Governor Mweke was here, you know, saying how it was installed without synchronization software, etc. And if you actually look at it, it's part of an 8.5 billion deal that was supposed to put up security cameras in major cities across the country. Never done. We are now paying Safaricom another 15 billion, you know, to do the exact same thing. You know, so my question is, what happened to that 8.5 billion? It was, according to Nairobi News, it was a grant from the Chinese in 2012, but nobody follows up. Nobody tells this story. of what has happened. We just report that, yes, once in a while somebody will ask a question and then it's forgotten. So that consistent.
Probably, well, yeah, quite right, largely. But I think the media should probably have focused more on asking is the EACC and even its predecessor intended and crafted to succeed? I mean, does it have the internal legal support
structure
and structures to make it a success unit of monitoring graft in this country? And because we have a long history. Remember during the days of Patrice Lumumba, when he was in the anti-corruption
Which I think we have done. I'll cut short briefly there before we proceed. Rita Tinina just drew those linkages for us in her report last night, which we aired as well earlier on, in terms of how the systems have worked in the past, who's been in charge, how they ended up leaving office, what were the circumstances around the same. So I think in terms of the media drawing the linkages and the challenges, that has been painted. At least we have seen an effort to be able to paint that picture of where we've come from.
But remember just before the current EACC boss got his job, all the drama that characterized his sitting in office, and I think even before he sat in office, we should have questioned seriously all along: is he coming to succeed in what he has come to do? Does he have the support even internally? And if you listen to the most of the complaints that have come from all those who have been put in charge of that body, they have all complained of external interference by people whom they're investigating, by people whom they claim to be powerful. And so I think I would want to ask myself, and we would need to ask that question seriously: what have we done to make sure that the EACC is a body that can deliver on its mandate?
That perhaps would be a question back to you as the legislators, because at the end of the day, the media cannot be the one to fix
and that's probably where that's what the media should raise. That's where
that you are the problem.
That's where the beam, not we the problem.
Yes, actually, I think so.
Because listen to this. You see, for laws to be enacted, for bodies or institutions to be strengthened, this has got to come from all of us as citizens. If we find that's my view. If we find that there is need to make it better, we need to raise the issue, and that is what prompts new laws to be made. I mean, when Parliament says that this unit is going to deliver on this mandate, and we say, fine, let's go. We've known the history, then that's the way it is. So I think really, as the media, let's beam our light inside that body and ask ourselves what's happening within its internal structures to support it to succeed.
I think we need to be looking at the systemic issues that are here, and he's pointed out some of them. I think the problem I have with lots of media, and I keep saying it, is coverage tends to be episodic, tends to be, we ran a report yesterday and then we say we have covered it. Over the period, we don't look at the structures that are put in place. If you remember, one of the criticisms that was there about the KACC was its lack of powers to prosecute. It's the same case with the EACC, but nobody ever talks about it, that they're still dependent on other people to prosecute. They investigate, they give it to the ODPP, and they hope that ODPP will go forward with it. So where is the discussion about their prosecutorial powers? That seems to have simply disappeared.
So
it's as if the problem was solved, but it really wasn't. I'll give you another example. Look at the Qatar thing in Gilgil. Whoever talks about it now? If you remember, the ODPP came, said he had directed the EACC to go and investigate it. Till today, nothing, and nobody raises it. And the senator is right. Politicians will respond to what's out there in the news.
First,
And for as long as it's not
do you
there,
appreciate that it is impossible to have every issue under the sun covered every day?
it is not about every issue under the sun, really.
Really? Yeah.
Because when you say now today we should talk about, okay, let's talk about everything on corruption, let's talk about KTN, how is it you see it happening in a realistic manner?
I would hope that within your media establishments, you've got desks, you've got somebody who is tasked with looking at perhaps corruption, and he follows stories to do with corruption, and he should be doing comprehensive pieces that have background, that explain this is the problem. It's not just one thing. When we've got a government that in almost everything it has tried, almost every project it has gone into, there are allegations, whether it's SGR, whether it's laptops, whatever you can point out. Now even in Lamu, the port, people are complaining about how the land was, who got compensated, etc. We've got to ask, there is a systemic problem here. And is that being addressed?
Maybe if I could just, add on to that. Well, I think we need to build consensus on the fact that the media is not necessarily, the only institution that should raise those issues. But we need to remember also that the biggest responsibility of the media is to keep the citizenry and the people aware on especially the most important issues. And I don't think that matters around the success and the working of the EACC is just an everyday issue. But maybe what my friend here says that there is a systemic problem, and looks like every project that the government has tried to implement has got some complaints. Maybe I would then take sides with them a little on that, because you see,
they shouldn't cover corruption.
No. You see, they should cover corruption. But if we said that it's their work to go and respond to every single complaint that arises, and the nature, also the nature of
the thing is, we are covering news. We are, running with what is current. We are looking for what is happening, and also, Gatara, once we have gone into this investigation, there's little we can do about the execution or what is done after that.
Actually, what you can do is tend to spotlight on where the failures are. If indeed, take the chicken scandal, which I thought for once there was quite a lot of spotlight on, but it's hard to understand who is actually failing here. And then the fact is, when you look at that chicken thing, and then you ask yourself, are we actually outsourcing our fight against graft? We had Okemo and Gishuru being charged in Jersey. Whoever asks about that, what did that case go to? The Swedes, the Swiss go after Anglo-leasing. The Americans, the other day, I've forgotten what it was about. But lots of these things seem to be people stealing from us but being prosecuted in other jurisdictions. What's happening here?
Well,
for the Americans, I was just remembering the guys who blew us up in 1998. Prosecuted by the Americans for killing Americans. Don't forget, not for killing us. So where is it? If our institutions are here to protect our interests, what work are they actually doing? And if we have a consistent follower, stories don't just appear and then disappear, and nobody ever mentions them again. If it was consistently being followed up, then people would have a better understanding of the failures within the system. So that when we fix it, we're not just repeating what we have done
what has been done. All right, Honorable Senator, do you feel that maybe after the media has done their job of coverage and all that, there is enough goodwill and support from the government and from legislators to actually have action taken? Such that we might be blaming the media for jobs they have done, but really they can only put it on the table.
Well, the media has done its part in highlighting that one. I think I would agree that they've done their part in highlighting. And when they have highlighted, I think, to the best of its ability, government has followed in every case. And I would want to point out just a few things. For example, like what my friend Gadara has raised, and I think there we need to be a little careful, because if we said that for every issue highlighted here and prosecuted outside, that we draw the line and say that these people are guilty, you know, we have our own justice system. And if Mr. A is guilty in New Jersey or is guilty in a court in the United Kingdom, does not mean that Mr. B, who has been alleged to have been either a collaborator, is guilty here until, and we know the law. We know the law. It's important to give justice its opportunity to run the course. So you give every man his fair share. Let him go to court if it is court here.
I mean, Senator, you don't find it weird. But has there any of these
processes ever completed?
Yeah, this is my point. Yeah. You don't find it weird that the British arrested somebody, prosecuted him, secured convictions even before we started. It's as if they were paying bribes to nobody.
But remember, those charges were preferred in Britain.
Well, where were our guys? I mean, surely.
And maybe that's then what we should be asking. was that then highlighted?
Yeah,
here,
and that's my point. Yeah. Is if we are talking about the efficacy of the EACC, we should be looking out and saying, if all those other people are able to do this, they are able to prosecute their own citizens, for stealing from us, and we here are unable to even begin.
Okay, and that's a conversation we'll be having tomorrow. I don't want us to move away from media and our role, because graft in itself and whether the EACC has done a good job and going forward in terms of this case has been highlighted is a conversation we'll have tomorrow on State of the Nation. You definitely don't want to miss that. From around 7 a.m. to 8, State of the Nation will be focusing on the fight against graft. And in fact, even today we are seeking to engage with you on that matter. We'd want to hear your thoughts. Talk to us about whether you feel the EACC, you still have confidence in that body to fight corruption in the country. And our contacts are
22155. You can SMS. You can also get in touch with us via Twitter. And a reminder of the question: do you have confidence that the EACC can fight or is able to fight graft? That's a story, or rather a question that we're running with this morning, and we'd like to hear what your thoughts are.
Yeah, in fact, don't miss State of the Nation tomorrow. And as they say, sometimes TV has this magic. So just like that, Clay Muganda landed on set.
Yep. or maybe it's the power of Photoshop. We just
Clay, it's good to see you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, it is excellent to see you this morning. It's been a while.
Oh, you're back from leave.
Forced leave. and not the kind of forced leave like the deputy CEO for the EACC.
So you touched on, as we bring Clay in, you touched on, Senator, the fact that the media has done a good job in highlighting, some of these corruption cases, and sometimes the question is whether going forward there's any follow-up even from the necessary organizations. But one would argue the media has done a really good job, Clay, so much so that Kidero has moved to court to get this media to shut up. The story here, Kidero fights to gag media on Mumia's judge declines request. So he argues that the story is run by The Nation, by The Standard, off of the KPMG report, touching and covering a period where he'd already left office, arguing as well that him and the others implicated were not given a right to reply. What do you think about the media's coverage of this Mumias, again, another corruption story?
As I've always pointed out before, is everybody in government or everybody in power, including the senator here, would never want anything about them negative covered. As long as they have little authority or little influence, they'd always want to clamp down on the media. And this brings me to another thing that I've always said, is that the media should never be in bed or try to dance or ever see the government as a friend. You see, so anytime they have any little authority or any little power, including the gentleman on my right, they'll always try to clamp down on anything that is negative about them. They only want the media to sing praises. And that's why, even now, you are very happy here now saying that, oh, Kidero has gone to court and all that. If at all we start writing all these things touching on you, I mean, you'd be the first person to try to shut us down. But I mean, this is very normal. This is very normal with politicians.
But
anyway.
what if whatever is being written on you, no matter what you do, and you see, one, I discount of that theory that government is an enemy at any one time of media of anyone, you know, because if at every time the media has got to interact with government, it's from a negative approach that I'm going to deal with an enemy. We should never be on the same side with these people.
Because the government is the only body, the only institution that is guilty until it proves itself innocent.
Okay, let him finish.
That is you know, your perception. But if you said that when government is going to launch higher education, maybe free higher education, that this media should go there, imagining that they're going to deal with an adversary, and everything that they cover there should be either negative or from a negative approach, we would be making a wrong approach. I agree, government should be held to account on matters where issues have been raised that we can see clearly require explanation. But that does not mean that...
Who raises these issues?
Fine, them. But you
how
see,
would they raise these issues?
You can criticize constructively, you know, positively, and you get positive answers. But I disagree with the fact that we should always wear a negative attitude. And for example, look at this time when you have highlighted on the issues on Anglo leasing and the consequent action that was taken by government. Immediately after that was highlighted, investigations have been concluded on some, whether guilty or not guilty, the matters were taken to court.
But we've seen this happen before.
You mentioned Anglo leasing, which is interesting. You know, Anglo leasing, we found out about it, what, about 10 years ago?
Yeah,
over
10 years.
It's taken us 10 years, you know, to do something about it.
Wow.
You know, and this is just prosecution. We're not even talking about convictions. You know, we're here to get there. Here's the second thing. But in the reporting about Anglo leasing,
hold on, yeah.
You know, our media seems to forget the 1.4 billion that we just paid. And our president said...
That has not been forgotten. I've heard it mentioned a number of times.
From my monitoring of the press, it really hasn't been too much of an issue. And my question is this, is if we accept this was a rodeo, and if the Swiss ambassador himself, you know, went to a press conference and said, we didn't have to pay that money, you know, nobody goes back and asks, then why was it paid? You know, and let us take people to task. You talk about accountability, then the government should be held from the highest officer to the lowest. They should be held to account for the actions that they do.
Before we talk Anglo leasing, let's finish on Kidero. Do you think his argument in court on the media's coverage and asking that they be gagged on this particular issue of linking him to Mumias, do you support his argument?
Well, I verily believe that everybody is
innocent.
Not innocent, but everybody has a right to be given a fair chance to present their case. Even if he's governor, if he's an employee of the governor, if he is an employee of the media or a media person himself. Now and we've had issues you know, with media people. Remember, there was a time one of the media people was accused, I think, of murdering somebody in Hurlingham, a young lady. And you see, you have to allow justice to prevail so that everybody gets a fair chance. Kidero could be innocent or guilty for all I care, but at least he needs to be given a fair chance to advance.
So are you saying so far he's not been given a fair chance in media's coverage?
You know, if he came out, and if I were him, what I would do is, this has been said, it has been brought out to the press, I would come here. I would come here and say, this is my side of the story. So this is what has been said, this is what has been said, but this is the truth. Now when you have the two plates to compare, then people can make up their minds. And I think that the most prudent thing that you would do as media is give Kidero a call and tell him come.
That has happened on numerous times.
These things.
Well, I mean, he was interviewed the other day by Yvonne Okwara.
Yeah, Yvonne interviewed him.
So in that sense, I suppose you could say the media has given him a chance to put out his view. But here's my thing. Again, another criticism I have of the press is this reporting of he said, she said. So that therefore, that's all it is. And this is the problem: is we don't stand in the space where he said this, and what's the actual truth of it? Kidero goes and tells Yvonne Okwara that KPMG did not give him a chance to respond to the audit. KPMG puts out a press statement, saying that actually we did, detailing the things they got, the letters they got from their from lawyers and stuff. It's easy to go to these places and get these letters, and find out. So when he says you did it, actually, that's not true. Let me finish. Let me finish one thing on the Kidero issue. I'll go back to the everybody's talking about Mumias. Right, and what he did during Mumias. Kidero, one of his first acts after he became governor, was to institute the camera, and traffic light system. He's the guy who implemented it. He started with Nairobi Metropolitan Ministry, and the minister then is a member of parliament, Jamile Kamau. Nobody asks him about it, Kidero comes in, implements it. The other day after the late Mushai was killed, he comes out and says they are all working. Yet, his own MCA is going to do a report, come back, 33 of them aren't.
So do you think he's going to court to try and gag the media has got?
Well, I think he has every right to pursue his avenues. I don't think it is wise myself, but he's got a right to do that. What I'm more concerned about is the media. I was reading in yesterday's Business Daily online. And they have this report about this other 400 million now that we are spending to fix the system, the road system where they're removing the roundabouts and stuff, that includes electronics, cameras and traffic lights. The very same thing that we had 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Let me finish. Do you know what the first Nene is? The first paragraph. If you read it, it says that in 2 months, Nairobi drivers will be happily driving through the streets. Problem will be solved. And as if we don't learn from the past.
In those 2 months, in those 2 months, we'll come back and say. I want to hear what Clay has to say.
I like what the senator, how he explained the way the Kidero going to court. He explained it exactly the way he would do it.
As a politician?
As a politician. Because anytime you actually go to court, because you have a right to come and present your case the same way like Kidero has been called and all that. When you go to court, it's to gag them. Don't talk about it. It's like, what I'm doing is sweep it under the carpet, forget about it. I am actually using the powers, judicial powers, to gag you. It's very simple. I mean, you can actually explain your case the way Kidero was given a chance to explain his case. And then probably KPMG also presents the case and all that. But this idea of running to court every now and then, it's actually abuse of the judicial process, and that's why I'm very glad that such cases are actually thrown out. And this is one of the ways of gagging the media. It's one of the ways everybody does it. You run to court the slightest opportunity, and politicians love that. As long as you're praising them, singing their praises and all that, nobody will ever go to court and say like,
I think Clay has a serious grudge with politicians.
Yeah, you praise me enough. Nobody ever goes to court.
But I tell you what.
One at a time. Let Clay finish.
Back to Gadara about he said, she said. Gadara, first we have to report. We have to say, Kidero said, KPMG said. We have to report first. And
this idea start analyzing and
before we start analyzing, because there's no way. First of all, you have to get the reportage, And this idea of probably thinking like it's the media's job to fight corruption. We report most of these things. You know about them through the media. You just quoted something you read in the paper yesterday. First we report. You get to know about them through the media.
Yes.
But it's everybody's responsibility. It's everybody's responsibility. You see, most of you people talk from the point of view that you need to spend maybe 2 or 3 hours in the newsroom to understand what actually goes on in there before a story comes out. It's not just something like, oh, somebody calls and says like, okay, fine, oh, there's some 400 million that is being used, and we go to press.
I'm really sorry, Kule.
No, but the thing
is, you're saying your job is to report.
No, first we have to report.
Yeah,
the reportage.
But even when it begins at reporting,
yeah,
you know, when I look at what makes it into the paper or onto the screen as a report, and it is devoid of the context of the background of it, I ask. It didn't take me more than 5 minutes or 10 minutes to get on Google and find out that actually there was a bigger deal than this 400 million caused, in 2 years ago. There was 8.5 billion. So
you want the linkages to be made?
What I'm saying
That's what's not happening.
When you guys present these things as if they spring from nowhere, you know, that it is just today. And then tomorrow we report another one. It's just today.
No.
And we never see the background to it. We never understand why. I mean, we never get to ask the question, which is not being asked. Why are we spending 15 billion when we were actually meant to spend 8 billion?
Okay.
You know, 2 years ago. Where is that 8 billion?
But on the other hand, I would say, like Clay has said, slightly on his side, that indeed it is important before you air a story or publish a story that take some time to find out the truth of that story. And I'll maybe give an example. You see, like, for example, on this 400 million shillings that's being spent on the security cameras as they do the roundabout. If you read the original presentation of how the city was going to be secured, it is supposed to have been done in 3 phases. So actually the first installations that were done were phase 1. Was supposed to go to phase 2 and then phase 3. We don't know, and that's why it's important for the media to find out, is this 400 million part of the second phase, or is it part of the the first phase?
Actually, from what
Gadara, because the media is also duty bound to give information that is truthful. And that's what when they are reporting on facts, those facts must be verified and verifiable. And so I think if we urge the media to just get a story and release it as fast as possible, so that we are full of content and reporting on everything.
All right. And let me put this to the three of you. The word grilling appears to be acting a lot of people the wrong way, rubbing them the wrong way. So this is a letter that was sent to newsrooms from the chairperson, IEBC, Ahmed Isak Hassan. The electoral management body is gravely concerned with the manner in which investigations by EACC on alleged corruption are continuously being misreported by the media. The Sunday Nation on 1st March 2015 got it wrong in the news article headlined, EACC summons 11 officials over chicken. First, the officers are not being grilled. They have only been called upon for interviews to assist in the investigation. Secondly, they've not been asked to bring personal statements as alleged in the article, and it continues. Then on a different note, this is a different story. Garissa Governor Nathim Jama says media misreported by saying that he was grilled. Claims he was invited to shed light on list of ambulances from Kenya Red Cross. So on both stories, you have the IEBC chair, you have Garissa Governor Nathim, who have issue with media reporting about them being grilled. They see this grilling as already painting them in bad light.
No, yeah,
Clay
I can explain that, and you should be very surprised because I know our weaknesses. That usage of the word grilled it's because our vocabulary is very limited. This is a case of limited vocabulary because
the media.
Yes, because in Kenya, all reactions. I'll tell you.
Even now I'm grilling you.
All reactions. Because in Kenya, you realize that all reactions are always. Is it varied? Or what is it? What is that word we use?
Again, limited vocabulary.
Yes, we always have limited vocabulary, and sometimes we tend to throw words around, actually, which mean nothing, and sometimes we don't understand. We always have mixed reactions in Kenya. Mixed reactions, even when we are going to quote one person reacting, we always call it mixed reactions. I'll just give you an example, just in less than a minute. during the time when TVs were off air or were switched off, we kept on calling it 5 different names. We call it digital migration debacle. We call it digital migration standoff. We call it digital migration
the blackout.
Stalemate. No, leave alone. We call it
Standoff.
Standoff. We call it digital migration travesty. I kept on asking my colleagues, what is, there has to be an exact word to describe.
So do you say there's merit in the claim that the media...
What happens is that our vocabulary is limited, and when we have so many words to use, we use them without actually understanding what the meaning of the word, what the thing means.
Probably.
So grilling, anytime somebody is called by investigators or by authorities, somebody who is supposed to conduct an investigation, we call it grilling, complete. I mean, right away. But in the case of EABC, somebody just being creative because it was chicken. The scandal is about chicken. So and these guys had been called for questioning or whatever it is. So we just ended up. It was about being creative. I mean,
if the question is on grilling, I think the media have got their own reasons for using the word grilling continuously, because I think it creates the right impact.
It means intense questioning.
I mean, for attention capture, because if you use we've already learned to associate the word grilling. When we say somebody has been grilled, one, it means that partially that person is guilty of something. So now he's come to be grilled, and when you're being grilled, then you're supposed to be next, probably in prosecution. But if you used as softer language or more expressive language, it may lose the meaning. So probably, probably the use of the word grilling is intended to capture that attention.
So it's a headline, it's to sensationalize or tell a story.
Actually, I get your explanation is very academic. But what I'm explaining to you is actually the reality on the ground. The reality on the ground. Okay. These are things that we actually discuss and say, like, no, don't say that the person was arrested. Just call for probably questioning. Because you see, like such a case, the one that they're writing letters, these are things that actually we discuss in the newsroom.
Okay, maybe I'd like to hear what Gadara has to say. And Gadara, the thing is, do you think that this is valid, what they're bringing up, the fact that we're using words that maybe taint their image just by the virtue of the fact that you've used the word grilled as opposed to maybe was called in for questioning? Is the media sensationalizing the story more than they should by the use of language?
I don't know whether it's more than they should. I think it would be really great if we spoke to the EACC and the rest and asked them, why did you call in these people? And ask them, are these people suspects? Are they being treated as suspects? In which case then, and was they, as you quoted, Sophia, in your in your definition of, was this intensive questioning? In which case then, the use of the word is merited. I think my point would be more, let's be aware that these words have penumbras around them, and let's be clear what we are trying to communicate when we say somebody has been grilled. What is it that we are trying to say? And if indeed the ACC is treating them as potential suspects, and if it is questioning them in a vociferous or in a hard manner, then I'm quite happy for it to be described as grilled.
But away from that case, do you generally feel that maybe the media uses language that is over sensational just for the sake of a headline?
I think the media tends to sensationalize things, and I think a lot of the blackout. That is a use of a word. That's what you guys called it.
We will go to that.
There was an information blackout. I think I saw even one almost describing Kenya as a black hole of information, which is actually not true.
So you want us to use soft language?
To play up, I think, lots of things. And to. I think the more important point would be you tend to focus more on what is sensational, than the actual content.
Unfortunately, that
substance.
I mean, that's the whole idea.
As you say, it sells, but the media has
actually
a duty to the public.
It works.
And it works.
That is how it's supposed to work.
The media has a duty to the public. And I've been trying to push this point for a while, that your duty is not just to your shareholders, or to the people who pay you, You've got a duty to the public. And the fact that you can sit here today and enjoy, do your show is very much because people out in the public went and fought for you to have that space. You owe them a duty, And for me, for you to simply focus on what's sensational.
Does that sensational headline play take away from the media informing?
Definitely.
Does it?
Definitely. I'll give you an example. Remember the girls
I know,
let's see his example.
Do you remember the girls who were accused last year in 2013 of having sex with a dog? There were 7 of them.
Oh, in Mombasa.
Yeah, that turned out to be a totally false story. Never happened. Was splashed all over the papers, things, and on your TV was a story that was being followed up, and there was nothing, and here's my point.
So what we're supposed to do?
No, my point is this: before we start, before we actually, if we understand that there's substances to stories, and we are more interested in the substance as opposed to what it looks like. If we are looking at corruption, we are more interested, not just that it embarrasses a few guys.
But that's a one-off case, but you cannot use that as a blanket indictment on the media.
I've given you examples of how you're dealing with a security cameras thing, with Kidero.
You see, Gadara gives a lot of responsibility to the media, which actually, it shows that actually he appreciates
trust
the media. And the only thing is we lack prosecutorial powers. We can't arrest people. I know we can do all these things like probably the citizen arrest and all that. I appreciate all that, Gadara. But as you say that we have a responsibility to the people also has a responsibility. It's a two-way traffic thing. You cannot keep on throwing stones at us and then...
And Gadara has platforms where he writes. He should write about these issues every day.
And I see Gadara keeps on calling the media this because I can say I don't like politicians, but let me say I can say that, but I will avoid them. But you see Gadara paints a picture like I don't like the media, but actually most of the things, most of the things he talks about, he learns about them through the media.
Yes.
Actually, Gadara is the biggest consumer of our products.
Of the products.
Let him finish.
We remember some of the things that... So, yes, it is our responsibility. But at the same time, it is the responsibility of almost everyone to fight corruption. I will report about...
Not almost everyone.
I'll report about police officers accepting bribes. But what if you go there as a motorist, traffic police, and you're the one who gives... Is that, again, the mistake of the media that the media...
Nobody has suggested
I'm just giving an example. So what I'm talking about is that it's the responsibility of everybody when it comes to fighting corruption or fighting or any other ills in the society. It's the responsibility of everybody else.
Okay.
The media, yes, we will highlight, but actually it is the responsibility of every Kenyan to in the fight against all this.
All right. Senator, your take on that.
I see it that it is okay for media to use the language that they think will do their part of disseminating the information the way they perceive it and the way they want it to be perceived, as long as it is within the parameters that are acceptable. But now when you use language that either has consequences of creating a certain impression on a personality, with probably the potential of destroying somebody's career or making somebody suspect from the language that we have used, or over sensationalizing an issue such that it is perceived to be what it is not. We have got these words that the media uses, like you have said, grilled, netted, but
that's very factual.
You see, so sometimes when you use that, it creates the impression just before you even read the content of the story that you're reading about somebody who is guilty, about a scandal, even before you have extrapolated the fact themselves. And I think that's the space that you need to moderate
on our language.
So that
I respond to something that Clay said.
Briefly.
I would agree that I do consume a lot of media. I think people should, and it's not that I dislike media. That's not my point.
Us so much.
My point is that I think the media could be doing a far better job, and this is what I've been trying to push. In fact, if I were you, I would be saying, all right, fine, at least he thinks, we can be better and actually try and strive to be better. When we sit down and we, I mean, and sort of a bit cocoons itself into this self-congratulatory place where they
never do that.
They actually do. They actually do.
We take the rap with the fruit, you know.
And I find that they really don't learn. You know, there's a reluctance to expand beyond what you're already doing. You know, I would love it if on stories such as the ones we have we mentioned, like Kidero and ETC, you know, that it wasn't just the superficial staff who are being fed. You know, that when you talk of the policeman who's standing out there in the street taking bribes, you're not just seeing that policeman, but you're seeing the system behind that guy. That he pays to actually be there, you know. And you guys have reported, he pays. But then you don't investigate that system. Who is he paying? Where are these bribes ending up? You know, ETC, that's all forgotten.
Yeah, but also
so in terms of sensationalizing, there's somebody here who says that questioning, grilling, interrogation, it all means the same things. It's just a matter of semantics. So maybe this is how they receive it. So
no, but I still insist. It's in our newsroom, this is a fact, is that our vocabulary is very limited. So when we pick one word,
there's some excitable words that we always run to.
We always run with it, even when
this
we don't that's not what happened.
Pack stories and the wars therein, and Babu Namwamba's all being on the spotlight, has brought out, in essence, just the rot in the legislature. When National Assembly, talking about the Senate and National Assembly and the Senate, I beg your pardon. So some of the accusations, counter-accusations, again, I guess it goes back to what Gadara will always say, the media is not painting that full picture in as far as, so now we are talking about this one. The other day, CS Agriculture was put on the spot on Mumias and sugar and the whole industry and why it's not moving forward. And he said it is because the reports that would see those behind these cartels brought to justice are being sat on by the same members of parliament. So this is one committee now on the spotlight, PAC, but it's many others that are still muddled in the same pool.
Take the example of the PAC itself. KBC reported, that during the push to evict Namwamba, to remove him from PAC chair, that he tabled documents incriminating 4 of the people in his committee. Who are these 4? You know, and is this a thief's bargain where you're saying, okay, let me get away with corruption so I don't expose your corruption? You know, etc. And these are the sort of deals I would hope were being followed up. If indeed he did table those documents, what are they? Where are they? You know, all I've heard of now being discussed is his recording of Raila and how he shouldn't do it, etc. You know, but those 4 MPs that he supposedly implicated, who are they? What are these deals? You know, and I would hope that our parliamentary reporters are actually following up on that and try to find out, you know, asking him, you know, where are they? Where are those documents? Let us see them. You know, I'll say one last thing, just to jump back a little bit about the Kidero thing. There's a lot of talk about the KPMG report, and the media seems to have it because they keep quoting it. Where is it? Why isn't it published in full so that the public can actually go and read for themselves? This is what it says. Just put it up on your website.
Go to KPMG website.
You know, because I've looked for it, I haven't been able to find it. So
okay, maybe Mumia's website.
So I would hope that you as media however you've secured this. Wait, hold on. If you've secured it and you've got it, put it up. Because instead of simply reporting that there is this thing that exists, if you have it, put it up. Let's have a look at it.
But we need to check the KPMG website. And
Senator, before we finally get to hear all of your thoughts on the blackout.
Yes.
I like this gentleman.
I wanted to
about PAC.
I wanted to say this on the issue of the PAC. I will be limited in what I would comment, because this matter is now under investigation by the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Committee, and that's the committee that takes on such issues and even goes ahead and disciplines members of Parliament if they're found to be guilty of any misdeeds. But I must say that this is a very black spot on on the image of Parliament. If indeed it did happen, if these investigations would reveal eventually that indeed those people are culpable, it's a very sad day for Parliament, and certainly I'm sure that action would be taken against those people, as part of the parliamentary procedures. So that we need the citizenry and the people of this country to have confidence in the PSC. But also on the other hand, Gadana, because as I said earlier, we should not be quick to judge. Yeah. Because eventually, if those facts are there, they will come out. They will come out. I'm also equally curious to hear what is the content of those recordings that the chair of the PSC says he has. And I was also asking the same questions that you asked. Who are those other individuals he mentioned? These all should come out very, very clear, and I think should be dealt with finally.
Just a quick question on this. If indeed parliamentarians were taking money, or being bribed to either sit on reports or pass them or whatever, aren't these criminal offenses? And why is it that it should be Parliament investigating itself and not the agencies that are tasked with fighting corruption, etc., going after them?
And that's a conversation we're veering off newsroom. It's a conversation we'll be having tomorrow. Just quickly say something.
Yeah, sure. I was going to say, this matter is in its preliminary stages. Once it's gone through the Powers and Privileges Committee and it's confirmed or it's not confirmed, then definitely it goes. I had some allegations that some of I saw it in the media today, in the print media, that some of those bribes are alleged to have been taken in a hotel. I mean, so indeed, if they were taken in a hotel, then the police should move in and do their work.
But at least we've done our job of bringing the news to the table and put it there. It's not, we cannot go ahead now and follow up what happened and who was paid. What we can do is highlight this happened.
Well, vigilance is continuing.
Not really.
I like this gentleman. He's a perfect politician. When the thing touches, did you see how he was so humble when he was explaining about this parliament thing? When it touches on them, they actually sit back and... You're a perfect politician. He says it's a sad day for parliament.
Senator,
Kenyan parliament, one sad day? No. Every day for Kenyans. Parliament
but Senator, I would really say that as a legislator and as somebody who's tasked with looking at how the system works, the fact that we don't have independent investigations being put out by the police, by the EACC, etc., that they are waiting for Parliament to do it, that for me that is a problem. That's not how the system should work. That they themselves, of their own initiative, should be saying, we think or we don't think something was wrong. Allegations have been made, etc. They either follow up or they choose not to follow up, and they give reasons.
And just to our viewers, you don't want to miss our discussion tomorrow, because we will get to the nitty-gritty details of all of this.
The whole Saturday
shebang.
Watching that. But just to say to Gadara that now that something is being done on this matter by Parliament itself does not mean at all. Does not mean at all that any other body or institution within this country that is mandated to take or undertake investigations
cannot do the same. All right, we must end. We have 2 minutes. I want to quickly hear from each of you, your thoughts. 19 days without KTN and TV, Citizen, QTV. So you said quite an interesting number of words were used to report on the same. Of course, the Standard was still out, the Daily Nation every day as well. Gadara, we'll start with you.
I think there was lots of fault on both sides of this. I think in terms of how the media covered its own blackout, it was atrocious. I think it has essentially acted as a mouthpiece of its owners while trying to present itself as the voice of the people. I think a lot of times the media itself was caught lying. When it claimed it was switched off the digital platform, then it turns out you actually switched yourselves off.
But it was on. There was just a message running.
There has been an extension. It wasn't switched off. It was
on. There was simply a message running on the signal.
Well, I seem to remember. In fact, if you look at, I was looking at the text that was scrolling. You know, I was about to scroll, and at the bottom over there you explain why your channels are off air. How are they off air if you haven't switched them off? And initially you said, and it was a statement that you guys said that actually we didn't. We switched off the analog and we had no choice other than. You had a choice. Then it turns out we were told the transmitters have to be imported, custom made. You know, it will take many months. Nobody thought to mention that actually the ones we already have in country are digital ready. We were learning this on Monday. You know, so there's lots of ways in which the media
and how has the other side erred?
Well, the other side was, I mean, the very fact that we had a standoff, you know, is a failure of regulation. I think. You know, I think if you look at how government has behaved in terms of, for example, the ADN registration thing, where they actually entertained another company with a similar name, and then they were saying, oh, we have to start the entire process all over again. I thought that was a pretty bad behavior. I thought the fact that we don't know who owns Pang, and now we're hearing even KBC are going to lose Signet. You know, all the shenanigans with this are not, again, I mean, it seems to me that it's obscured and it's creating opportunities for corruption along the lines that we saw with Safaricom, with Mobitelair during Moi's time. The same thing now that seems to be happening with Pang and this other company that's registered in some offshore place.
And proposals to whittle down the powers of the Communications Authority and as well have media as part of the membership of the same. What do you think of that?
Well, I think the media should be part of it. I think that the CA itself doesn't come out of this smelling of roses.
As independent.
Yeah, but of really more concern to me, and in the context of the show, is how the media reported this. You know, and it acted very much, it was one-sided, and it acted very much as the mouthpiece of its owners.
Okay.
You know, and it was unable to distinguish between the interests of its owners and what the public interest was.
All right, Clay, briefly, what's your take on the whole?
And how do you know what the public interest is?
What? I'm a member of the public.
So we're also members of the public as the media.
You see, like, you learned all these things through the media. Okay, that I touched on something which actually I just want to mention that this, whatever is happening now, should be an eye-opener for the media to actually evaluate and re-evaluate its relationship, or let me just call it situationship, with the government. And apart from that, also the composition of so many media entities, starting with the Media Council of Kenya, Media Owners Association, Editors Guild, and even Communications Authority. Because we are having, one thing we're not asking ourselves is, how did we get here? That is one thing. Before we will have to answer that question. If we do not ask that question and answer it, then more problems ahead. Having said that, the exact word for all this, after all this you're explaining, all Signet is going this way, PAG is going that way, CA is saying this and all that, it's not, we should stop using all these very many words to describe this digital. It's a digital migration imbroglio. That is what we have. We have an imbroglio. Not a travesty, not a blackout, not a scandal.
You're certainly not short of vocabulary.
We have an imbroglio.
We have a spell that.
Or better still, what does it mean?
You look it up.
It's for our viewers.
IMBROGLIO. That is what is going on. Yeah.
Which means?
It's total confusion everywhere.
So how the next headline will be digital
migration imbroglio. Yeah, that is what
may I just jump in a little bit on the digital migration thing?
Less than a minute.
Very quickly. Bitangen Demo, who used to be the CS for the Information Ministry, was interviewed on CCTV during your blackouts, especially etc. And he said something very interesting. He said the aim of the government, or the goal of the government, was essentially to have telecommunication companies being the carriers, you know, and that broadcasters as we know them today, essentially concentrating on content. That was the model they were working towards, and that's where the convergence of technologies is taking us. So to a very large extent, the discussion we're having about whether you should carry your own content, etc., might turn out to be academic, or might be one that is not conversant or informed by the actual realities. And I would really love us if we were to expand these discussions, and then we look at what's the convergence of it. I mean, Safaricom the other day just got a broadcast license. What are they doing with it? What are they broadcasting?
Okay.
Who are they carrying? etc.
Finally.
I think one, it was there were very dark days indeed. Those days that
you missed us.
I mean, especially we politicians missed you a great deal. but I said this, indeed, this should never have happened in the first place. And I think, in my opinion, the larger part of the blame, I would take it to the media. I'll tell you why. One, I think the approach that the media owners took was not helpful, because in the first place, the decisions, and I will be frank about that, so that in future, if there's a similar situation or anything close, the media owners would handle it differently, because I think they just simply had a problem with the attitude. If they had carried a different attitude, a different approach to this problem, it would have never gotten to where it got to. And I watched on some few occasions when the media owners went to for interview. It was on KBC, I remember, sometimes when they were being interviewed by the Committee of Parliament, and I think in other situations. And the attitude they carried was not helpful for the cause of the media.
But did that come from a place of already dealing with a body that should be independent, should be neutral, but carries itself out in everything other than what it's supposed to? Then you already come in.
In any situation, you pre-decide what do you want to get out of the approach that you have taken to that issue. Did they want to resolve this matter and have the media houses running again, or did they want to put largely an egotistic fight? Because largely it was a contest of who has more power here, or who can stand more firmly and show that they still got authority, and it cost the media. Lastly, in 2013, in the month of June, I personally, in Parliament, tabled the question in the Senate on digital migration, and it was discussed for a whole 2 days, urging the media to take corrective action and ensure, one, they are ready. I had structured the question in 3 phases. The first phase was, is the media prepared for digital migration? That was in 2013. Are these set of boxes that are being said are going to be sold affordable to Kenyans? Is the tax that's been surcharged on them affordable to the people? Thirdly, have the Kenyans been made aware that this is going to come, it's going to cost them, and there is likely to be a blackout? Indeed, my last question was, have the people around Nairobi, in Kiambu, Machakos, and wherever, been sensitized and informed?
And whose role is it to do that?
Now, I as a legislator brought it to the House for the media to pick and for the media to take action. You know what happened? We discussed it in Parliament for 2 days. There was not even a single line of reporting from the media.
That's the most painful part.
But most important
so you left it at that until D-Day. Until D-Day, and there was a whole 1 year and a half.
But whose role was it to prepare the country? Right now you have South Africa preparing their country for digital migration. The government is buying set-top boxes.
If you looked at the policy paper, when I brought that question to the House, is after I had looked at the policy paper that had been developed by government, by the ministry earlier of ICT, long way before when Mutahi Kagwe was the minister. And I said, You mean this has been coming all along and nobody's...
My issue here...
You've still not answered whose responsibility
because your issue is that you were not covered when you talked about this. Not that, because the biggest problem...
I think you guys are being unfair.
I get where he's coming from.
I get where he's coming from.
The point isn't that he wasn't covered.
Yes.
His point is that this thing has been going on for a very long time.
It has been going on, but the question of who was to sensitize the country, civic education.
What?
Civic education, to let the country know your last question that you asked in Parliament and explained. Whose role was that? Whose role was that?
Don't only take... Let me rephrase that word for you.
Yeah.
My first question was, is the media prepared? That was my first question. Is the media prepared for digital migration?
But those processes have been called for a very long time.
And so, you know, what shocked me, you know, after this standoff is that whole period, none of all the media houses ever bothered either to not to report on the matter, but to act on it. To act on it. The whole intention
the last
was to
question before we wind up. Whose role is it? What was the last question you asked?
Have the people of this country, and especially around the neighboring the neighboring areas of Nairobi, been sensitized? Because it was intended to start with Nairobi. When have the people been sensitized that there's a possibility that the people in Kiambu, in Machakos, in Kajiado are going to be affected when Nairobi starts migrating? That was my last question.
And whose role is it to do that?
And the most effective people to sensitize the public is the media. Because they have the means.
That is true.
Yeah.
And in fact, if the government was to go out and start a sanitation campaign, they'll probably do it.
I think we'll have to wrap it up right there.
It has to be.
This media is
the mass media.
So this media is indispensable.
And this is why you guys are missing the point. Nobody denies that the media is important.
Thank you.
It's why they're actually doing it.
Time is up. And the media has to do something else.
The job of the media to extend time also.
Yeah, this media has to move on to other things.
We cannot bring the clock at this point in time. The media has not reached that point. So thank you very much, gentlemen. Honorable Senator Kimani Wamatangi, thank you. Clay, Patrick Gadara, thank you so much for being part of our panel today and helping us look at ourselves and how we do our job. So thank you so very much. And to you at home, thank you also for watching. And we're not yet gone. It's not yet over until the fat lady sings, somebody said.